had a back injury in 2004 working as a CNA where I lifted somebody wrong. And in 2010, I had a repeat back injury that tore a disc in my lower spine. That is when my doctor prescribed Percocet. I started taking them more than prescribed because I built a tolerance pretty quickly. Then I had a baby and started getting higher needs based on the emotional distress of not knowing how to raise a baby, being addicted to alcohol and opiates. I ended up taking them from my place of employment and falsifying records and putting patients in danger. There were definitely places where I tried to overdose and die.
I would say over the last 15 years, we've seen a trend towards groups that we wouldn't have historically seen impacted by substance use disorder, all of a sudden profoundly impacted by it.
It's across all demographics, and first responders have to deal with it firsthand in the street, but they also are experiencing their own opioid uses too.
A lot of first responders and medical practitioners are exposed to both primary and secondary trauma. Primary being they are coming across and witnessing first person, firsthand, a lot of traumatic experiences happening throughout the community. And then importantly, they're also experiencing secondary trauma, which means maybe they weren't on scene when a significant incident happened, but they are seeing the aftermath. And so there's constant exposure to trauma. There's also constant exposure to stress. I mean, the weight that a lot of first responders carry with their duty belts, with their oxygen tanks, with their uniforms, as well as lifting bodies, assisting in heavy loads, right? There's a lot of physical strain that happens.
It can be very fast-paced. There's emergent situations, urgency of time and effort.
On top of kind of the stress of shift work, of being in high-intensity environments, of being the safety net for our society in a lot of ways, the sense of caring for patients on their worst day can be very harrowing.
A lot of first responders and medical practitioners do enter their career with the knowledge that they will experience stress and trauma. And then kind of how we often see it in therapy is usually there's the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's the one event, it's the one scene that cracks the foundation.
Some of the reasons for first responders start using opioids is, they get injured on the job. So they start out with a prescription, they find that it gives them relief, they're able to get back into work, which then eventually turns into an addictive process, and then they become physically addicted to it. Some of the other things is we're looking at post-traumatic stress injury, and they're running on calls, pediatric death calls, traffic accidents, some pretty horrific stuff that they're seeing, and they may start using a substance in order to help block out the feelings and the emotions.
There's a slippery slope towards addiction, and not everybody knows when they've crossed a line to the point of unhealthy use, misuse, or using for emotional reasons.
PTSD and chronic pain can go hand in hand, but because of the stigma involved in mental health issues with first responders, they're going to go after treating the physical a lot more readily than what they would with the psychological. But how we treat the physical is a lot of times is medication.
When I worked in the ICU on night shift, that was the loneliest days before I got into recovery, before I sought help. The culture there was not trusting, and I didn't feel like I had a connection with any of the people there. I was scared to ask for help. I didn't believe there was help.
We don't see a lot of people reaching out because of their own issues. I think because of the stigma of what that would mean and what it would cost them. And so we see that that's still very hush-hush. But I would want first responders, medical professionals, dealing with what's happening in their world related to the opiate crisis is it's normal to have reactions. It's normal to not feel okay. And that we know that one of the best opportunities is to find safe places, to be honest about that.
Absolutely. And as a peer, I mean, there are times where you need to ask those closed-ended questions, especially if you're looking for a definitive answer, yes, no, whatever. But if you need them to explore the situation.
Starting in 2020, we started working with UC Health Southern Region here in Colorado Springs and Pikes Peak area to create and then implement their peer support program. So what peer support is, it's a trained employee, volunteer employee, that is especially trained to be able to reach out to a fellow colleague, a peer, who seems to be struggling from something. Often that's stress.
I think it might be helpful also to repeat back what they're saying. So the
Paraphrasing or summarizing. Yeah, so again, all of those both show that you're listening to them and you can come at it from a very empathic way.
We have over 200 of our peers trained specifically to provide peer support. They are people in all different roles, so both patient-facing and non-patient-facing roles. It's 100% voluntary and 100% confidential.
We talk about how do you recognize stress and trauma that somebody might be experiencing, how do you have a supportive, helpful conversation around those experiences, and then what resources are helpful.
When I worked in the ICU on night shift, there was one nurse that kind of reached out and said, "Are you okay? You just had a baby. Are you okay? You don't look happy." And I started to trust her a little bit, and then I think it's important to have a human connection, because the disease of addiction is isolating.
What research has shown us is that time and time again, social support is one of the biggest factors in recovery from stress and trauma. And so things like peer support and reaching out and having those conversations, things like massage, yoga, going for walks, exercise, engaging in art, engaging in play.
I had group therapy, I had individual therapy where we focused on some of the physical pain issues that were really wrecking my world. Meditation and yoga were part of my treatment as well. I got to learn how to rock climb, which I had never done in my life before, and learned that I could run and got some good endorphins and pain killing from running, and be around people who were also living in the sober lifestyle, living in recovery.
As an industry, we haven't let people know that it's okay to not be okay. And the number one message that I would want to share today is it is okay to not be okay. Every single one of our providers that comes into our organization gets training in first responder resiliency. We have a program called Mental Health Days. Every once in a while, you just need to take a break and focus on you.
No, that's made up. You made that up.
Yeah, there's nothing. You're gaslighting.
It's not real.
One more try.
And I want my providers to know not only is it okay, it's expected.
The more conversation there is, the more transparency there is, the more we're going to keep breaking down those walls.
It's not going to be easy, but there is help available. There's support, and somebody will listen to you and help you find the way to kind of address all of those pieces that need to fit together.
They're going from survivor now to victor, and they start learning that they can control this rather than it controlling them.
It's going to take people who are experiencing these things to actually be willing to tell their stories, to be willing to say, yeah, I did a program, and leadership did stay by me like they said they would.
Ooh, Maddie, can you grab the flower?
My daughter, she and I have this relationship that's so beautiful now. We cook together, we make bread together, and we get to work out together. I don't need to take a pain pill. I get to work on mental health every day. I get to work on spiritual health every day, and those pieces all fit together to let me live in this world and not have it happen to me.